Standard 10, Subject English, Unit 3.1, Night of the Scorpion, Nissim, Ezekiel. A little information about our author, Nissim Ezekiel. Nissim Ezekiel, 16th December 1924 to 9th January 2004, was an Indian Jewish poet, actor, playwright, editor, and an art critic. He was a foundational figure in post-colonial India's literary history, specifically for Indian poetry in English. He was awarded the Sahitya Akademi Award in 1983 for his collection Latter-day Psalms. He was also awarded the Padma Shri in 1988.
I remember the night my mother was stung by a scorpion. 10 hours of steady rain had driven him to crawl beneath a sack of rice. Parting with his poison, flash of diabolic tail in the dark room, he risked the rain again. The peasants came like swarms of flies and buzzed the name of God 100 times to paralyze the evil one. With candles and with lanterns throwing giant scorpion shadows on the sun-baked walls, they searched for him. He was not found. They clicked their tongues. With every movement that the scorpion made, his poison moved in mother's blood, they said. May he sit still, they said. May the sins of your previous birth be burned away tonight, they said. May your suffering decrease the misfortunes of your next birth, they said. May the sum of all evil balanced in this unreal world against the sum of good become diminished by your pain, they said. May the poison purify your flesh of desire and your spirit of ambition, they said. And they sat around on the floor with my mother in the center, the peace of understanding on each face. More candles, more lanterns, more neighbors, more insects, and the endless rain. My mother twisted through and through, groaning on a mat. My father, skeptic, rationalist, trying every curse and blessing, powder, mixture, herb, and hybrid. He even poured a little paraffin upon the bitten toe and put a match to it. I watched the flame feeding on my mother. I watched the holy man perform his rites to tame the poison with an incantation. After 20 hours, it lost its sting. My mother only said, "Thank God the scorpion picked on me and spared my children."
Children, let us read and understand the explanation of the poem Night of the Scorpion. I remember the night my mother was stung by a scorpion. 10 hours of steady rain had driven him to crawl beneath a sack of rice. Parting with his poison flash of diabolic tail in the dark room, he risked the rain again. The meaning of diabolic is having the qualities of a devil or wicked. Here in these lines, the poet tells us that he remembers the night when his mother was bitten by a scorpion. It had been raining for 10 hours, and to escape the rain, the scorpion had crawled beneath a sack of rice. Since it was dark, probably the mother had not seen the scorpion, and the scorpion bit the mother, and it parted its poison in the dark room. After parting with his poison in the dark room, the scorpion went back into the rain with a devilish flash of his tail. The peasants came like swarms of flies and buzzed the name of God 100 times to paralyze the evil one. With candles and with lanterns throwing giant scorpion shadows on the mud-baked wall, they searched for him. He was not found. They clicked their tongues. With every movement that the scorpion made, his poison moved in mother's blood, they said. Here in these lines, the poet tells us that on hearing the news, the villagers came like swarms of flies. They came in groups. Swarms of flies is a collective noun, and they started chanting the name of God 100 times. And buzz the name of God 100 times, that figure of speech can be a hyperbole. And buzz the name of God, that is an onomatopoeia. The villagers chanted the name of God 100 times in order to stop the activity of the devil. So they are indirectly comparing the scorpion to a devil. They search for the scorpion with candles and lanterns, throwing huge shadows resembling the scorpion on the mud walls of the house. They searched for it but did not find the scorpion. They clicked their tongues in frustration and sorrow. The villagers were so superstitious and orthodox. They had very superstitious views. So they began saying that with every movement the scorpion made, the poison will move in the victim's blood. The poison will move in mother's blood and she will be in tremendous pain. May he sit still, they said. May the sins of your previous birth be burned away tonight, they said. May your suffering decrease the misfortunes of your next birth, they said. May the sum of all evil balanced in this unreal world against the sum of good become diminished by your pain. May the poison purify your flesh of desire and your spirit of ambition, they said. And they sat around on the floor with my mother in the center, the peace of understanding on each face. Here in these lines, the poet tells us that the villagers hoped that the scorpion would sit still. We know they believe that with every movement of the scorpion, the pain increases. They had superstitious views, they were very orthodox. Now the villagers started giving their superstitious views. They said that the sins of the mother's previous birth would be burned away that night, as she is suffering now. She's in tremendous pain. So that is why the sins of a previous birth would be wiped out or would be burned away. And as she is suffering at this moment, it would also decrease her troubles and misfortunes in the next birth. They even said that the sum of all evil is balanced against the sum of good in this unreal world. And they hoped that the pain that the mother is suffering now would tilt the scale in her favor. So she would have a better life. The villagers also prayed that the poison would purify her body and a spirit of ambition or a spirit of greed. They sat on the floor with the mother in the center, and there was a piece of understanding on every face. That is, they knew that they cannot do anything about it. More candles, more lanterns, more neighbors, more insects, and the endless rain. My mother twisted through and through, groaning on a mat. My father, skeptic, rationalist, trying every curse and blessing, powder, mixture, herb, and hybrid. He even poured a little paraffin upon the bitten toe and put a match to it. I watched the flame feeding on my mother. I watched the holy man perform his rites to tame the poison with an incantation. After 20 hours, it lost its sting. Here in these lines, the poet tells us that more neighbors came in to help with more candles and more lanterns. There were more insects and the rain continued endlessly. The poet's mother was in tremendous pain and her entire body twisted and turned as she lay groaning on the mat. Groaning means a painful sound made in pain or in grief. So the mother was groaning. She was in tremendous pain. The poet's father was a skeptic, a rationalist. The meaning of skeptic is a person who doubts the truth or value of a belief. He was also a rationalist, a person who only believes in reason and knowledge rather than opinions and belief. So his father was a rationalist who believed in reason and knowledge and doubted the truth or value of a belief. He also at this time tried every curse and blessing. He tried powders, mixtures, herbs, and hybrids. He even poured a little paraffin on the bitten toe. The meaning of paraffin is a flammable, waxy material, and lit a match. That is, he lit fire to it. The narrator or the poet watched this with great pain. He also saw a holy man performing rites to make the effect of the poison lesser, and he did it with a magical chant, incantation. It is the chanting of words which claim to have magical powers. The narrator or the poet further tells us that after 20 hours, it lost its sting. That is, the effect of the poison started to wear off. My mother only said, "Thank God the scorpion picked on me and spared my children." Here in these lines, the poet tells us that his mother thanked God that the scorpion had chosen to bite her and had spared her children from the ordeal. It shows the selfless love of a mother who endures the suffering of a scorpion bite and is yet relieved at the thought that the scorpion has spared her children. The figures of speech in the poem Night of the Scorpion. Simile. What is a simile? When two unlike things are compared using the words as or like, the figure of speech is a simile. The example, the peasants came like swarms of flies. So the peasants are directly compared to swarms of flies with the use of the word like. Metaphor. What is a metaphor? When two unlike things are compared indirectly, the figure of speech is a metaphor. To paralyze the evil one. Here, the scorpion is indirectly compared to the evil one, the devil. Onomatopoeia. What is an onomatopoeia? When a word conveys the sound that is to be expressed, the figure of speech is an onomatopoeia. Example, and buzzed the name of God. The word buzzed indicates sound. They clicked their tongue. The word clicked indicates sound. Groaning on the mat. The word groaning indicates sound. Alliteration. What is an alliteration? When sounds are repeated in a sentence for pleasing or musical effect, the figure of speech is a alliteration. Parting with his poison flash. So the sound of the letter P is repeated. Of diabolic tale in the dark room, the sound of D is repeated for poetic effect or musical effect. Throwing giant scorpion shadows, the sound of the letter S is repeated. He even poured a little paraffin, the sound of P is repeated in this line. I watched the flame feeding on my mother. The sound of the letter F is repeated. So therefore, these are all examples of alliteration. Antithesis. What is an antithesis? When opposite ideas or words are used in the same sentence or line, the figure of speech is antithesis. The example, trying every curse and blessing. You see in this line, opposite ideas are used or opposite words. Curse and blessing also in the same line. Therefore, it is an antithesis. Personification. What is a personification? When inanimate things or even ideas are treated as though they were human beings, or inanimate things are given human quality, we call that figure of speech as a personification. Example, I watched the flame feeding on my mother. So the flame is given the human quality of feeding. Homework to be done. Do the English workshop given at the end of the poem. Question number 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, and 8. Write an appreciation of the poem in paragraph format. Appreciation of the poem has been explained in the previous videos.